Greetings, everyone, and welcome to episode 55 of Teaching Tales, the podcast totally devoted to sharing stories from the world of education. I am your host, Brent Coley, and a principal at an elementary school in Southern California. And I'm very excited. Joining me today, the one, the only, Dean Gainey. Dean, how are you, buddy?
I am doing excellent. Very good end of the week. Glad it's Saturday. Glad to be here.
Yes, we were chatting before we started recording. It couldn't have come at a better time. Productive week, good week, but I'm glad there's Saturdays to kind of relax and take a little bit of time off. But I'm excited to chat with you today. We've been kind of chatting via Voxer about getting together today to record, to share some stories. But before we get into that, let everyone who is listening know a little about you. Who is Dean Gainey?
Well, that could be a loaded question, but I will say that my name speaks a lot about who I am, and it means in the valley. And so when I think about that, I think about being someone who is involved in lots of different things. Everything, when it rains, all the rain comes in the valley. Anyway, I am Dean, the teacher of 12 years. This is going, after this year will be 13. I'm also Dean the singer. I've been singing all of my life. Dean the writer. Recently published our first solo book in April of this year, Journey to the YNU. Dean the actor. I could go on and on about different things that I've done. Served in the United States Air Force, so another bank of experiences there. So all things considered, I'm a smorgasbord or a buffet of things.
That's fantastic. I'm trying to think back on all the guests that I've had, and as I'm jotting down notes, I don't think I've had anyone list the number of things that you have just done. That is awesome, and thank you for your service in the United States Air Force. I appreciate that. When we chatted beforehand about what kind of stories do you want to share? What do you want the topic to be? You said one of your passions, you have a lot of passions, but one of the ones that you wanted to share stories about is it's about the reach. So go ahead. The floor is yours. What do you mean by that when we say it's about the reach?
Well, if I had to define this, I would say that I've come to know certain things as an educator for 12 years that I may not have been completely aware of before I was a teacher. I think it's one thing to teach, but I think it's another thing to reach. And strangely enough, I knew somewhere in my mind that I was going to be a teacher when I was a kid. And I don't know exactly how that came to be, but I know I had a very, very inspiring and encouraging first grade teacher. And she was a very good teacher, but there was something extra. There was something more that she had going on. And like I said, I probably wasn't really aware what that was at the time, but there was something about her that made me want to go back in the afternoons after school was over and just kind of be in her classroom. That turned into, once I graduated first grade, went to second grade, I would go back and visit her then, and the story goes, third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade. And once I went to middle school, I left elementary school, I would go back and volunteer in her classroom, right. Doing whatever, she gave me the opportunity to do. And, it was a volunteering thing, but in my mind, I felt like it was my obligation to do it. And I would faithfully go back as much as I could each day. And I volunteered all the way up to 12th grade when I graduated high school with probably, I think it was the second highest volume of community service hours because I felt like she did something. She changed something. She sparked something. She inspired something in me. And she cared. She cared in a way that I don't believe anybody else did. Now, my mom and dad were absolutely excellent, but this was a different thing. Mom and dad, you get used to your mom and dad, and you go around your mom and dad. Your mom and dad love you, but there's something about when someone else takes an interest in you and believes in you, and will sort of push you or urge you on. And that was her. She would say certain things. She was very, very matter of fact at times. Like, she would not let you step out of line. She was very structured, but at the same time, it was a soft hand. It's like, this is why, or the way in which she carried things out really inspired me. And I think that was the time, that was the moment, that was when I knew that this must be something I'm headed towards, because it's with her. I saw myself teaching because I kept going back and being in a teacher's classroom. So when I think about the reach, I think about her. I think about how she reached a part of me that I don't think I knew about at that time. I didn't even know I had it. I didn't even know that I had that in me to be reached, but she reached me. And it was my decision to go to college, become a teacher, step into the classroom. And so that's how I started to understand from day one that she inspired me, she motivated me, and this is the reason why I'm here. So that being said, that launched my teaching career. Now, that's one story I would share, because that was where it all began. And as I've been teaching for the past 12 years, I've slowly but surely understood that it's not just my teaching certificate. It's not just the fact that I've gone to school to get this degree. Because quite frankly, it's out there for anybody to go to school and get a degree. It's out there for anybody to pass a test and get a certificate. But there is a lot more going on than that.
Yeah.
So I have an interesting story. I interned at an elementary school in Orange County in Orlando. And right after I got out it's my last year of college, my senior internship. Was fortunate enough to get hired by that principal. So I started working at that school as soon as I graduated. And the very first class I had, I was excited, I was motivated. I was that first year teacher that was really just all about the learning, all about the kids. And I was just so happy and excited. And I had a chance to, after that third grade, I taught third grade. I had a chance to, when they got to fifth grade, I guess you wouldn't call it a loop because they went to fourth.
Sure.
I was still in third, and then I jumped to fifth. And so I had a chance to teach that group of students for a second time. So there was this one student who I taught in fifth grade, and I felt like teachers avoided him. I felt like no one paid any attention to him. He had some behavioral issues, challenges. He was a twin. And maybe I thought back to when I was in first grade. Maybe I had a moment where I reflected on my first grade experience. But I said, I'm going to find a way. I'm going to think about something I can do to try to help. And so, I would talk to him here and there and try to encourage him to do the right things, and ask how I could help to better his experience. And I actually had him eat lunch with him a couple of times and just had conversations with him. And little did I know that how much those moments would have, not only just at that time, but long term. And to hear about it, I've heard several things post that year, like after that year was over, still hearing things about the initiative that I took to help him, to care enough to reach him, right? And not just be concerned about the academic things, although the academics are important, but there was something more that he needed than just the academics. And clearly he wasn't getting it. He wasn't getting it for whatever the reason is. He needed somebody, he needed something extra. And I made it my personal decision that I was going to reach this kid. He did not get better overnight. Excuse me. There were still some behavioral issues, still things going on that year. But, and this is the interesting part, I think, and I call it teacher gone uncle. Because I was no longer, well, I was still Mr. Gainey, but I became Uncle Dean very, very quickly. Very, very much so respected and appreciated by his family. Even beyond his time at my school, I would reach out to him. I would check on him. I'd make sure he was okay. Anything in terms of studying or whatever, I would help him study. I would tutor. Even the ASVAB, we were working on him getting that test taken at some point. Things like that, that I felt like I could step in and be that uncle and help and inspire and motivate, just like that teacher in my first grade class did to me. He is now 22. He is now 22, and I am still Uncle Dean. And he actually is slated to get married soon. And he made it very clear to me that I have to be at the wedding. I might even have to be in the wedding and sing at the wedding, which I'm totally okay with. But it's one of those experiences that every time I think about it, I think what would have happened, what could have happened to him had I not reached out to him? What would have happened to him had I not taken an interest beyond the academic stance? What would have happened if it was just, oh, that's just another student. Let me just teach and not try to reach. To me, that's a perfect example of how trying to reach a student has been a success. It can help them in more ways than you could realize. I think it also says that when you try to reach that student, you may not be able to do it the same way as everybody else. Yeah. It's going to take something a little bit different. It's going to take an approach that may have you step out of your comfort zone. Yeah. But if you truly are concerned about the well-being, the whole child, if you're concerned about that student, you know, it to me, it says, I'm willing. I had to make a decision. Yes, I could have said no, but I realized that it was for him. It was for his good. And I think as a teacher, I've come to understand that as a teacher, this is real. Like this is not just academia. There's learning that takes place that's not just limited to math and science. There's much more to growing and learning and teaching than just that. And so I'm grateful that I've had the opportunity to be able to be in his life. He has recently expressed certain things to me about how I saved him from things, or how, you know, I would say something to him, or how I would something that happened in that fifth grade year or beyond that fifth grade year that really meant a lot to him, and for the relationship that I have with his family and him, of course, over all of these years. To me, that's the reward. That's the benefit, because his pathway, you know, changed, was altered, perhaps, from what it could have been had I not realized, hey, I can't do what I've always done. I have to do something different. So stories like that, I mean, that's probably the biggest one I would say as far as impact that I've had. But stories like that really reinforce why I teach every day.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, gosh, number one, you're a good storyteller. Well done, Dean. but it's reinforcing. Again, I'm jotting down notes. It just reinforces to me, because I'm with him. And as I think you started your story, when you started talking, you said, like, you realize the more you've been in the profession, the more you realize how important this is. How important that, yes, we've got standards to teach, but if we're not building the relationships with these kids that we teach, how far are we really going to get? It's like, I loved your quote. It's one thing to teach. It's another thing to reach. And yes, how many, I mean, you said like a lot of people will gain their credentials, they'll gain their certificates, and they'll be in a classroom and they'll quote unquote teach, meaning they'll say the things, but how many of those students are they actually reaching? And what a testament to your first grade teacher. I mean, have you kept in touch with that teacher?
I have, and she's up in age now, but she still remembers me. I wouldn't say I was her. I could say I was her favorite student, but I was definitely the one she saw the most because I went back and helped her all those times. Sure. But I mean, I will never forget the level of impact that she had, and just thinking about it sometimes just gives me chills because I just wonder where I would have been. Yeah. You know, even with the parents that I had, you know, how would my life path have been altered had she not stepped in and been an impact and been an influence? You know, and I even wonder too, what, like, you know, what would someone do? What would I do if I knew that if I took the opportunity to reach a kid and couldn't fail? How would that change my actions? How would that change my approach to things if I took the opportunity to reach a student with the understanding I couldn't fail? Like, how would that transform life as we know it if every teacher said, I'm going to try to reach that student. I'm going to do something a little bit different so I can reach that student. And it totally transforms their pathway. Yeah. Totally transforms their life. And not only them, you too. Because I mean, I will tell you, when I reached out to this, what I call him, he's obviously my nephew now. He's not the same color as me either, which is another powerful thing, which, I mean, I could certainly talk about that. But in my reaching out to him, in my becoming Uncle Dean, it changed me. Because it certainly means a lot that I have biological nieces and nephews, but there's something special about the idea that we are not biologically related, but at the same time we are, you know. And I love, another one of my big ideas in life is diversity and community. I love the fact that we understand that it really doesn't matter when it comes to showing that you care, when it comes to empathy and compassion and all of that. It really doesn't matter, all those things that we see. But what really is important is what we don't see, and those things that are acting inside of us that cause us to care and to show that we really want the best for other people. And I just feel it. I feel that question so strong in my mind, is if you could not fail, what would you change? What would you do differently? And so that's kind of how I live now as a teacher. Currently, I look for opportunities to have an impact. I look for opportunities to reach. You know, and at the same time, I also ask the question, is there such thing as someone who is unreachable? Is there such a thing? You know, thinking about the reach. Is there anyone that can't be reached, or is it that we haven't considered the way in which we should reach them, or an opportunity? Is it that we haven't identified what it's going to take to reach them? But I just think that, you know, the reach is what's important. Teaching is great, but I can teach all day and then not learn anything. You know,
to teach without the reach, is it really teaching type? I mean, or is it the depth that we want to go? And I think you and I will agree, and I think anyone listening is going to agree. The answer is no, because I mean, kids will they'll run through a brick wall for you if they care about you. I mean, your first grade teacher you cared about so much that you came back and volunteered for the next 11 years. I mean, what a testament to that teacher. And to go back to your question, is any kid unreachable? Is anyone unreachable? I firmly believe the answer is no. But I go back to what you earlier said when you were talking about now your nephew, the one that you really wanted to invest in, you said it didn't change overnight. You said that there were still issues, there were still things we had to work on. And for any teacher who's listening right now, or any administrator, or anyone who's listening, we know just because you make that decision, it doesn't mean, all right, fantastic. Now all the behavior problems are solved and all of the potential outside life problems that this kiddo is experiencing, that goes away. But I think answering your question, gosh, I love that first question. What would we do if we knew we couldn't fail? And that's just a mindset, because really it may take 10 years. I mean, literally, it might take 10 years. Let's say you're a principal or whatever, something like that, and you're going to be in contact with a certain student for a number of years. It may take that long, but really, can we fail? That would be my follow-up. Can we fail if we don't give up?
And I would answer your question by saying no, because even in your trying, I believe that you are learning new things, you are understanding new things, and I think slowly but surely you are changing things. And even if that means changing you, because it's not, sometimes, yes, we have some things that we want to see improve with our students, but sometimes, I mean, and I've realized it too, sometimes it's me that changes. I see something in a new way. I gain new perspective. And so I think that's just as powerful.
Amen. No, I completely agree with you. And I would just want to add too, that I think it's important sometimes for teachers, because you had, going back when you taught third grade, and you had the opportunity to not necessarily loop, but teach that same group again in fifth. When I taught fourth grade, I had the opportunity to move up to fifth the following year and loop. Now, I didn't have the entire set of kids. There were 9 students that followed with me, and that was awesome. Just to be able to have that second year. But I think it's important for us to understand that we may not always see the fruits of our labor. So let's say we don't loop up with their kids, or we don't get to teach them again in fifth. If we're planting those seeds, if we're not giving up on that kid, if we're just investing in him or her, they may move on from us to a different class, to a different school, to a different whatever. But we may be the ones, like your first grade teacher, who they're always looking back saying, Dean's the one who changed my life. Dean's the one who cared about me, who invested in me, who believed in me. And even, I mean, how many of your other students besides your nephew now look at you in that way? I have to think dozens. I mean, how many of them are doing that? And you may not even realize that. And that's, I think, important for anyone listening to remember. It's like, you're not always going to see the tree, the mature redwood tree from the seeds that you're planting, but you're still planting those seeds and the tree can still grow. So
I love that analogy. I really love that analogy. And perhaps once that student leaves you, everybody else is watering and being a light, and maybe adding a little fertilizer to that seed that you planted. I think that's a great analogy. And I even loved how you used the redwood tree. Yeah, of all trees, you picked the redwood tree.
Strong. Big, strong.
Yeah. So I just, it's such a beautiful thing, and I've taken opportunities to attend events, recitals, piano recitals, plays, sports, those kinds of things. And of course I can't do it every day. I'd love to, but taking those opportunities to be there and to be present, and to support, those times do not go unrewarded. They see you in a different way, because you're out of the classroom, and so you're in a different light, and you see them in a different way. And I think we're all the better because of opportunities to reach like that.
Amen. And like you said, it benefits them and it benefits us as well. So, wow, Dean, thank you, my friend. I appreciate you sharing this. I am inspired, and I know that anyone listening right now, I'm sure that they are feeling the same way. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Before we go, for anyone who wants to reach out to you, you mentioned you've written a book. So if somebody wants to pick that book up, because I'm going to assume that you're kind of touching on what you've talked about now in your book. I ordered it this morning. It'll be here Monday, by the way. So
I'm excited.
I'll be reading it on Monday. But if someone wants to reach out to you on Twitter or somewhere, how can they get in touch with you? Well,
I'm definitely there. My handle on Twitter is at Dene. That's my first name, at Dene _Gainey, Gainey. I am also on Voxer. If you are using Voxer, same username, at Dene _Gainey. You can go to my website, denegainey.com. You may find me there. And then as far as Journeys to the Y and U, the book, it is available currently on Amazon. Journey to the Y and U. You can even Google it, or you can find various links even on my social media sites that will take you directly there. So I'm excited that you are listening to this podcast now, and hopefully you'll have a chance to go pick it up, because it definitely will challenge you to think maybe a little bit differently and even reflect on things that you've experienced up until this point. So hopefully encouraging you to find the why in you.
Awesome. Well, Dean, thank you so much once again. Totally appreciate you taking the time. I know I got something out of it. So again, even if no one else is listening, I got something out of it. So selfishly doing this podcast, doesn't matter if anyone listens. I'm getting something out. It's PD for BC, for Brent Coley. So, that could be like a little tagline. Anyway.
I like it.
So, and thanks everyone else for listening. If you haven't already done so, as I close each episode, be sure to subscribe. That way you're going to get your updated episodes automatically delivered to your phone, tablet, or computer. We're available on iTunes, Google Play, and Spotify, or you can listen directly on my website at brentcoley.com. Once again, everyone, thanks for listening, and until next time, have a good one.